And but God is present to us. And so I asked the Lord, show me how you're present. What does it look like for you to be present to me? Because I'm a worship leader, and I need to, I'm a worshiper, really. I need to know how to be present. In particular, I want to be present to you, Jesus. I'm sitting at the table, and my daughter Lucy, she says this. She's about two years old or something at the time. She says, "Ugh," and it's directed at me. So she says this to me, "Ugh," and I said, "What?" And she said, "Ugh." That's what it sounded like to me. And I looked at her and I said, "Lucy, I can't understand you. What are you saying?" And Emma, who's about 5 years, 3 or 4 years older than Lucy, she says, "Oh, Dad, Lucy says she'd like a glass of milk." I said, "What?" And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how does I want a glass of milk. But anyway, you just want to make her happy. So I go over to the refrigerator and I grab her a glass of milk and I give it to her. And she says in clear language to me, she just communicates this beautifully. She says, "Thank you, Daddy." Right? And then I sit down. And I'm just sitting there at the table thinking, and that evening I'm getting ready for bed. And it's like, right like that. That's how it happens with you, right? Just like this. Spirit, that's what the spirit of revelation. I'm not trying to like cookie cutter this so that you can understand with all this, like it's the spirit of revelation and then this happens. But you know how it happens. You're living beings with a living God. Boom, it just illumines your mind. And you, don't you see, Jason? You asked me to show you how I'm present to you. Do you see it? Do you see it? And God will do this often to you. He'll take you, he'll ask you a question like that. And then he'll kind of wade in that. He'll wade in that moment with you, right? And you'll just sit there. Do you see it? Do you see it? Why? Because God is way more inductive than he is deductive, in my experience. Meaning, he isn't just going to deduce everything for you and tell you. He wants you to start learning how to be present, how to imagine, how to see. And so do you see it? Do I see what? Don't you see? I showed you. What? This is all happening in my mind. And I know that does. I got lost in Central Park today, and there's people reading books to nobody and crazy stuff, You're like, there's nuts, crazy stuff. So you're like, I know what you're thinking. But, sir, do you see it? Oh, yeah. I lay down in bed. This all takes about 15 minutes. Yeah, I see it. You're like Emma. You're like Emma. Emma spends so much time with Lucy. She's so present to Lucy that Lucy's blah is language. Blah means I'd like a glass of milk. That's how I am with you, Jason. Before you even have necessarily, you're trying to communicate. You don't say the words with the proper diction. Not everything is exactly how it should be in your communication skills. I already understand you. I spend so much time with you that your means something to me. You see? Do you understand that your facial expressions mean something to God? Like when your mother knew that you were sad. Do you know that? It means something to God. When I look at my son, I know when he's had a bad day when he comes home from school. He may not, he's 11 now, almost 12. He might not want to share it with me. But I know, I can feel it. Why? Because I'm present to him. And I want to be present to Jesus like Jesus is present to me. When we sing, right? When we sing, and we sing our worship songs, so much of what we do, and I understand it, so much of what we do, right? It's like we're trying to create in this culture where like Heschel used to say this all the time. He used to say, we make life routine, and routine is resistance to wonder. Right? So what do we try to do with something as unbelievably huge as worship that you can't lock it into just an expression, but this is what we do. It's like our expression, it's like, okay, this is what people can handle. This is how you got to land it, because this is just where people's mind is. So let's just create them. These people are just simple people, right? I learned this. It's like, it's the only place that we go to that we don't come with an expectancy to grow in our wonder and our understanding, our minds being open, our imagination being broadened. Right? Church. It's like, this is how we want it. This is where I am. This is what I understand. This is where I want the expression to be. Just give it to me, USA Today. You know what I mean? 13 years or younger. Right? And anything that kind of like comes up where we're like, I didn't understand that. Well, what makes you think that I understand it? I mean, let's just take a gander at the Gospels and the disciples following Jesus. How many times did they understand him? And we this is what we love to do. This is what I said last night. Our image of Jesus is to create the great teacher. The great teacher that every time he spoke, if he came into this church, he'd just speak and we'd all just be like, woohoo! Yeah! Let's fill up stadiums and listen to Jesus talk. And then everybody will understand. Oh, but Jesus is risky. He requires our imagination. Sometimes he just goes red in the scriptures. Right? Seriously. It's like, take John 14, for example. Here's Jesus with the disciples. It's comedy in scripture. Jesus is like, okay, guys, Jesus, can we just see the Father? Well, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Yeah, but if we could just see him. It's right in the scriptures. Where are you going? Well, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And then, right after he gets done telling them in John 14 exactly what he's going to do, they ask him, well, what are you going to do? Why? Because there's a breakdown for them. You see, there's a breakdown for us. Sometimes what we need, you see, the activity of our life, I always tell the guys in my band, the activity of our worship, that's what God's after. And if we could start bringing the activity of our worship, right, to our expression, what happens to expression? If everybody in this room comes with the anticipation, I've been worshiping all week, all of a sudden expression can broaden, right? It isn't like this, where we have this little expression. Just say the same words over and over again because we're just not patient enough. You see, expression can be so broad, right? if we're present in the activity of our life. If that becomes worship. But if this becomes worship, then what we have to do is we have to narrow down expression to this sort of baseline reality, and then that's our worship. And this all comes down to so sometimes, like for me even, like last night there was a moment where I felt the most vulnerable. That was the moment I was most present. Right? And I have a lot of time. I'm going to get this last point, is to just follow me here. And I know I'm on the clock here, but so last night, the moment I felt the most vulnerable was when I got on that C note. And I sat there, and this is what's going on. Okay, I have absolutely no idea where I'm going. And then if there's a video, you would see me. I looked over at Scott and Al, and I was just sort of hesitating. I can go to a song, or I can ride the wind. Right? And my ability to feel comfortable to go here and ride the wind was connected with my relationship that with Steve or with the people that are here, you see. Why? Because why do I want to go into that place of vulnerability where I don't know where I'm going? And then I'll just do it anyway, generally. You know what I mean? Because I'm foolish enough to. But you see, the place of vulnerability where you don't know where you're going, those are the moments where you're really actually the most present and the most alive. Why? Because I don't have a lyric to lay back on. I'm waiting for it. It's like the missionary friend that told me one day. There's, when we were sitting at the table to pray for the meal, this missionary friend told us one day, there's a big difference between praying a blessing over your meal and praying for your meal. Right? It's the same in worship. The presence, are we praying for the words of our worship? Is there like an interaction going on with a living God in our worship? When we're come to worship, are we present to what we're saying? Do we even believe what we're saying? And even in our praise worship, is our praise declaring who God shows and reveals himself to be? Sometimes in worship, I sing it just like you do. I go to church, and of course I'm not going to, it's not my job. My life is what it is. But it's not my job to be critical of worship or praise or any of that stuff. But sometimes when I'm sitting in worship, I think to myself, wow, it's like, I call it the distant God worship. Or, it's like God's just, one day and sometime and thank you and you're big and you're so big. Have you noticed this too? Big is big right now. Big is big. And he's so big. He's so big. He's so big. God's so big. And what is that? What is that? That is a manifestation of what you would like people saying to you if you were God. Jesus did not reveal himself as an insecure Napoleon. Jesus did not reveal himself as someone who forever, all we're going to do is tell him how big he is. This is why God is not nervous when he looks small. This is why God is not afraid of poverty. This is why God's not afraid of the cross. Right? He is the God of the father who sees, not the Jacob who has a father who's going blind. But we worship God like he's, like in those movies. It's always like that there's always the evil prince is always the one who's so insecure and just can't handle it when there's favor on someone who didn't strive for it. God isn't like that. But yet we worship him like he's like that, you see. You're so big. You're the biggest. You're great. You're going to take this city. Oh, thanks. Why don't you just tell him, one day you're going to be president. I doubt God's going for president. Lastly, so anyway, I took way too long on that. But being present, guys, okay, so how does that, so personalities. How does God transcend personalities in worship, and how do we be present at worship? And how some of us, for me, it's really good to have a time limit. It is. Why? If you ask Al, why is it good? Why is it good? It's good because it rides against my nature. Right? So all of a sudden, often when I have a time limit, I do better. Because it rides up against, I have to trust more, I have to make a decision, I have to go somewhere, I have to, right? I can't just meander. That's what I do so well. So when there's a tension against me, see, then I grow, you see. I do something different. I go somewhere where I wouldn't have gone had I been given 4 hours. You see? And, but, so one time, this particular place, and I knew it was going to be televised and all this stuff, and it was going to go out to a lot of people. They decided that they wanted me to trumpet spontaneity in worship. And this is all about being present, you see. And so this is what happened. I went to Al, a friend of mine here, and I said, Al, I said, this is what I feel like I'm being set up to be the guy that's going to tell everybody a form and tell everybody that they need to be spontaneous in worship, because we're trying to push a form on people. So we need to be, and I'm Mr. Spontaneous, so I'm going to be the guy that preaches to everybody and tells them why they need to be spontaneous. And I said, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to go out there and tell people to lock in to my form or some form, because that misses the whole point of worship. What is that doing? When you do that, we need to be spontaneous. You need to worship like I worship. Right? No. This is what we want. If you're a worshiper, that's what matters. How come we've limited it to such, right? It's like, are you a worshiper? That's hardly even asked anymore. Who cares about your life, man? Who cares about if you have a prayer life? I mean, geez, that's for pastors. I mean, you're a worshiper / entertainer. Right? Right? You don't have to take any risk. You just download that crap from the internet. I'm kind of kidding, but see, no. You are not a meandering musician. You're a child of God. And your expression, come on, guys. Can we get a little deeper than my 7-year-old? My 7-year-old's writing songs now. My 9-year-old is writing songs with her. She started when she was 7. Emma, she's writing songs. Some things that we sing are okay for my 9-year-old, and she loves it. Right? But church, can we have an instrumentalist get up on stage and play an amazing Bach piece? Could we? Could we land it? Could we keep everybody's attention? Right? Could we have someone read poetry? Right? And could it hold our attention? Would we leave if we didn't understand it? What if they leave us in the tension? What if the G doesn't end on G? What if they leave us suspended? Whoa. Right? Okay, but let me just tell you, so what did I do? So I said, Lord, give me, and I apologize because everybody else went under time, and of course I went over, but just listen. So, Lord, give me a vision of why spontaneity is important. Why is it important? And I woke up the next morning before I was supposed to go and share with the prodigal son's story on my mind. And so I went and opened up to Luke and I began to read it. And all of a sudden it dawned on me for the very first time that the only reason that we got the preparation of the prodigal son, what he wanted to say to his father, is because Jesus let us in on the preparation. It was part of Jesus' story. So we get to see, because of Jesus, that this boy prepares these statements, right? To speak to his father, to say to his father. And then all of a sudden I kept reading and I see. Then all of a sudden he gets to his father and his father sees him a long way off, right? You know, everybody knows the story. And there the father comes and embraces. Some people tell this story so beautifully. I mean, it's like the father grabs his son and like they roll in the mud, or however, you know what I mean? However you see it with your imagination. I don't know how it all went down. But what happened? What happened is he prepped to say something that he never got to say. Why? Because spontaneity happened. And why did spontaneity happen? Because his father was alive. And he saw that his son was alive. And he spontaneously responded to seeing his son come home. Right? Now, I want you to just think about that within worship and being present in worship. Do we prep ourselves for a dead God? If we're prepping for a dead God, then you don't have to just prep everything. I mean, it's kind of worthless anyway, right? But if we're prepping for this dead being, that we're coming and we're going to worship and we're going to sing or whatever, and we're prepping for dead God, well, then you don't have to worry about spontaneity. But I want you to think about your relationships that you have. Maybe you're married, parents, relationships with friends. What one of those relationships does spontaneity not happen? Tomorrow night I'm going to lead worship. It is not just what I bring here. It's what you bring. Right? And I can't, there's like a few different spontaneous things happening all at the same time. I may be spontaneous. God will be spontaneous. God will be alive to everything you say. And he wants me to be alive too. To what I'm saying, to how I'm saying it, to how he's responding, to how he's reacting. It matters. If we're in a living relationship, spontaneity just happens, doesn't it? And if we're in a dead relationship, it doesn't. Right? How does God respond? How present am I? And so let me just first start there and pray for you. First, God, I just ask for sensitivity. Right now, I just ask for the gift of sensitivity. And I just want you to raise your hands to the Lord and just receive as a gift, right? passion for his presence, passion for his feelings, awareness. In fact, I'm just going to say that over you, just awareness. God, I just pray for awareness to you, awareness to your moving, to what you're doing, to what you're saying, awareness when you're speaking, awareness to those little wonderful moments that happen all the time in so many random places that our routines can resist. I ask, Spirit of God, that you would push away those resistances, that you would make us more aware. God, I ask that our worship, that we'd be aware when we come to worship, when we come to sing, that we'd be aware that you take us seriously. While you're in this place, I just keep your eyes closed, and I just want you to imagine this. One day in my imagination, God showed me my son at 5 years old, and he's almost 12. And every time that I promised him that I would take him to a ball game, or I would do something fun with him on the weekend, he just trusted that it was going to happen. 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 And it just, in my imagination, he brought me to that. And so in your imagination, just go to that place. He just brought me to that place. And God just spoke to me and said, I'm like Samuel in that way. A child only learns that his father's vows, you see, what I say, isn't going to happen if I let him down over and over and over and over and over again. But God is like the 5-year-old who, I don't know how this happens, it's a mystery, but he hears our vows to him over and over and over again. And yet we don't live up to what we say. But yet, every time we make another vow, he trusts it like that 5-year-old all over again. God trusts what we say. When we say something to him, he believes it. Lord, make us present to what we promise you. Make us present when we promise things to you that we know we have no intention of keeping. Make us present to that. Make us present to your heart, to your emotions. Make us present, Lord, in our worship. And I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Is there a common language that constrains what?
I said the form, but I think the word you used a lot was, let me just see it here, our expression. We started with that idea about we often let our expression dictate what worship is rather than letting our worship dictate what the expression is.
Right.
But, my expression and the next person's expression becomes a language where we're all expressing together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's in your heart.
Yeah.
You don't know what's in my heart.
Okay.
The way we communicate is through an expression.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. Like,
right.
It's got to come from, the worship has to come
Right.
out in an expression, though, but we all relate from an expression back to heart.
There's a this is the this is a big issue, unfortunately, because we standardize value based upon commodifiability. So our value, we can only value things that people will buy, that people will purchase. So we have no value really for art. It's like Picasso said that this is Rich Mullins used to quote this all the time. Picasso said that the greatest enemy of great art is good culture. And the reason that God can love what a culture would say, can transcend and love something that a culture would reject in its time, is because God is not cultured like we are. You see, we're cultured. And one of the biggest things in culture, we don't even think about it, guys, and it's not anything that's bad. I love pop music. Love it. I love it. And my girls dig it. I mean, it's amazing. And I have to live through terrible stuff too. And it's like, but pop, but it's important for us to dial back sometimes and recognize that pop will be an impedance to true worship. It will. At some point, pop, it's just not pop. It's just not, Jesus is not pop. It just doesn't work that way. Jesus is, I'm not trying to steal that guy's line from the book, but Jesus is way more like jazz in a room with like 12 people. Right? And it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
You have no value. Nobody's even here. Right? How do we value things? Well, how many records did they buy? Right? Did they get you? With Jesus, you don't get that constraint.
Yeah.
So this is a problem. Don't ask Jesus, well, Jesus, would that be okay with you if I say? All Jesus is interested in is my heart.
Yeah.
And then the heart, and your gift, your talent. Like, if you're not gifted enough or talented, you should probably be doing something else. You know what I mean? But put that aside and say, okay, you have the gift. This is what you were created for, right? And what you're created for will probably be found a lot quicker if you're not going for, like with my 4 kids, if you're not going for what gets you on the shelf at Walmart, right? But if you actually are going for what's holy about your life, and so language, pop language, and I'm even noticing this within charismatic circles because of capitalism and America. And don't get me wrong, I'm not judging all that. I don't sit around and just judge it. I'm just saying it in the sense of how we can be free is to understand what it is. It doesn't mean that you can't jump around to it or love it or listen to it in your car when you're driving and having a latte. You know what I mean? It's like, fine, who cares? It's like, it is what it is. But at some point, we have to understand what it is. When we say, hey, let's make it popular, let's make it big, let's make it... Well, if you're going to do that, you're going to ultimately have to dumb it down. You just are going to have to. You're going to have to dumb down your language. And the depth that you're going to have, you're not going to have as much freedom to go to a place of depth. What are we training in the church? We're not training people to watch for the trends. We're training people, right, to literally be holy. Maybe you have a better word, but that can sound like such a spiritual word. But holy in this sense that you are exactly what God. Yeah. And this isn't. I'm not saying this in a narcissistic sense, like it's all about you. But it is in some ways about you being what God created and intended you to be. So popular things that we look for, even within, now I'm noticing it within charismatic culture, popular things. It's like pop. Have you ever noticed it in worship where it's like you're listening to this new worship song and I'm not, it's awesome. The person is selling huge amounts in volume and they're amazing. I mean, these people are amazing that they can do that. I could never do that because I I just can't. It's impossible. I'm a terrible pop artist. I'd be horrible. Why would you even want to? I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous, actually, when I think about it. So I'm not coming against it. Good on them for being so popular. I love it. But when I'm reading it, sometimes I'm noticing lately trends, and just notice it for yourself. It's like every amazing line from every popular worship song the last 15 years, we got to figure out how to get it in there, because that's what people respond to. Sometimes and if you're not, let's get our eyes open to it, just so that we realize what it is. And it's a reflection of the lack of maturity among us as the people of God. And so pop language does this, but we should be able to broaden it just a little bit. But at the same time, some language is what you need. Like, you can't use some of the words you use. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. We were just joking about that because he's like, hey, that word's great. It's great here. I said, I'm just kidding. But I was in Australia, man, and the Australians, they say words that I'm totally fine with as an American. I think it's awesome. I'm like, wow. But I'm like, wow. Yeah. Right in church. You just said that word?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
We don't, yeah. They mean something different.
Oh, yeah. Oh, don't you think, too, as worshipers, that there is a transcendent element to us? Like, whether it's, there should be a transcendence, like, about who we are.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't be bringing my American
No,
culture
I agree. Yeah.
as a worshiper. There should be something different in me when I go to England or when I go to these places, that I can, because of the Spirit of Jesus in me, I can transcend culture,
I love this statement. You said God is not insecure. So we don't have to sort of say to him, "Good on you, God. You just keep going. You can do it, God. Take the city. I'm right behind you, God. I'm actually a long way behind you. Just give me a call when you've done all the work, and I'll turn up and share in the glory." So it's like, yeah, God, I want to split the glory with you, but I don't want to split the work.
Yeah, right.
Right. So what sort of things would you say to God that magnify him or give him his due credit without slipping into that mistake? Personally, what would you say to him? Like, you're in the studio at home, you're just praying, or you're just singing a song that has, you're just singing.
Yeah. Well, when we were saying that about Baal, sometimes our praise can be a manifestation of our doubt. So, like, if we're not careful, right?
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of learning that for instance, just a simple way. I don't sometimes know how to explain it this way, but I can explain it sort of this way, Like my prayers for my children have changed as Thanksgiving has become the foundation of my life of worship. So if I start with Thanksgiving, then everything when I'm praying changes. How does it change? Well, okay, when I used to pray for Samuel and Emma when they were little, this is how I prayed. Oh, God, I just ask that you'll just keep them safe. And just help them, Lord, with their schooling. And, oh, Jesus, while I'm going to be gone for 4 days, and I'm just asking, this is how I pray, right? But I'm praying different now. I'm praying like this. And like you said earlier about fine lines, a lot of Christianity is about fine lines, right? And now how do I pray? Jesus, thank you that you always are looking after Samuel and Emma. Any of my children as I'm praying. I start that way. It starts with, thank you. Hey, how about this? Thank you, Jesus, that you are present here. That we don't have to beg you to come. That just a little bit of our presence just opens up the earth, and there you are. Thank you that you're here. Thank you that you're here. And so thank you is a great way to start. And in my worship and prayer, it's like, God, thank you. Now, there's a difference between panentheism, like worshiping the trees, pantheism and God is in everything, right? And in panentheism, that God is in the tree because God created the tree. And there's something, right, in praising God. Praising God, like we have a property where we have tons of trees, old trees, different types of trees. And learning to when the tree guy comes, learning everything I can from this tree guy. Why? Because somehow I know that if I can learn about a tree, the way a tree heals itself, the way, the name of the tree, the way this tree is different from that tree, why this tree drops in November, but this tree drops in early fall, and why would you put this tree next to your house that drops in November so that it can create shade? And all these people, if you have that mindset of learning, and you're learning about the way something heals itself, and the way a tree works in the leaves, and the way it all of a sudden, it's impossible for you not to see God in that, right?
Yeah.
And you're just full of praise and wonder because you're like, whoa, this is amazing, I wrote a song years ago. I did a record out of my house, and I didn't know it until years later because I'm not known as a big praise guy. You know what I mean? It's like I'm more like, okay, Jay's going to pray with us. It might, you might get a little to sleep, but try to stay awake. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. But okay, so but a few years ago, I decided I wrote this whole song cycle called On the Rim of the Visible World. And it wasn't until 2 years after putting it out that the Lord showed me. He's like, I was in a thing and they were like, do you write praise songs? Somebody said that. And I just quickly just said, no, I don't write praise songs. And not that many, And then later on that night, the Lord was like, oh, no. You wrote a praise record for me. It's On the Rim of the Visible World. I mean, I wrote it. I should know whether it was a praise record or not. But I didn't even realize that. What? I wrote a praise record? Yeah, you wrote a praise record, On the Rim of the Visible World is a praise record. And even me, the writer, in the experience of it, didn't realize that what I was doing was I was saying, I'm going to praise you. It's just that I'm going to broaden all that you are in my life, and I'm going to be present to more and more and more of who you are, And like tomorrow night I want to do On the Rim of the Visible World, but sometimes I'm nervous to do some of those songs because people, they think you're just singing a song. Or when you write poetry sometimes, they'll think, and I have to push myself out of that and push that tension a little bit further and say, no. This is a praise song. Like how does that song start? Here it is. A great cathedral in the sky. A sanctuary that's always open. Grandpa lighting up our eyes, telling stories, like the generations, right? Telling stories while our world's unfolding. On the rim of the visible world we go. On the rim of the visible world we go. Beyond the window I see light and a promise of a place unbroken. Skip the rock, it's going to fly. Listen to the whispered songs of morning. On the rim of the visible world we go. Oh. And it's like, when I put that record out, some of my charismatic friends were like, dude, man, what are you doing? Right? Because, what am I doing? And I didn't have the courage to know. I didn't have the understanding to know even. It's not like that. I'm praising, man.
Yeah.
I'm praising. And so, anyway, that's how
That is awesome.